Noah Strickland first noticed something was wrong when he tripped over a plastic survey flag in his own hallway. It was early Saturday morning, the sun was barely peeking through the blinds, and Noah had just shuffled downstairs to make coffee when his foot caught on the little orange marker poking up from the wooden floor right near the coat closet. At first, he thought one of his nieces had left a toy during their last visit, but when he bent down and picked it up, the flag had a barcode sticker and a stamped label, Lot Boundary, HOA Project Phase 2. He stared at it, confused. Noah had lived in the same house for 8 years, a modest single-story ranch on Magnolia Place, shaded by mature pecan trees and a crumbling stone walkway he always meant to fix. He wasn't new here, and neither was his house. He looked out the front window and saw more flags, tiny orange posts scattered across his lawn like breadcrumbs, leading toward the sidewalk. And beyond that, parked on the curb, was a flatbed truck loaded with metal fencing panels. Noah blinked. He stepped outside in his slippers. A man in a reflective vest stood at the edge of the property, squinting at a clipboard. "You with the city?" Noah asked. The man looked up. "HOA. Morning. You the resident?" "Yeah," Noah said. "That's my house." The man pointed to the flags. "Well, this section's due for fence installation today. Should take a few hours." "Inside my house?" The man raised an eyebrow. "Come again?" Noah held up the orange flag still in his hand. "This was in my floorboards." The worker scratched his head, then turned the clipboard around. "According to this lot plan, the eastern edge of the greenbelt cuts right through here." He pointed directly at Noah's bay window. "Right where the corner of your house sits, that's my living room," Noah said. "Well, we're just following instructions," the worker muttered. "Talk to the board if there's a problem." Noah didn't even know there was a phase 2. Back inside, he poured his now cold coffee down the drain and grabbed the HOA newsletter from the junk drawer. Buried on page 4 was a section titled, Community Perimeter Enhancements, East Side Lots. It mentioned new privacy fencing to beautify shared walkways and define property boundaries. There was no mention of entering homes, no diagrams, just vague promises of improved consistency across the neighborhood. He called the HOA office. A robotic voice answered. "If you are calling about the Phase 2 fence project, please leave a message." Noah didn't. He changed into jeans, grabbed a notepad, and walked out to the curb, where 2 more workers had begun unloading fence posts. The foreman, a younger guy with a clipboard of his own, gestured toward the sidewalk. "You can't stand here, sir. I live here," Noah said. "And that flag over there? It's inside my house." The man blinked, confused. "Inside where?" "My hallway." "You sure about that?" Noah didn't respond. He just motioned for him to follow, and opened the front door. They stepped inside. The man looked down at the flag, then at the hardwood floor, then slowly backed out. "Sir, we're just working off coordinates." "Whose coordinates?" "Look," he said, trying to sound apologetic. "We're subcontracted. You'll need to talk to the HOA board. We were told the fencing was to run parallel to the new greenbelt line." "There's no new greenbelt line," Noah said. "There's just my house, and you're trying to fence it in." The man hesitated, then motioned to his team. "Let's pause the install." By midday the workers had pulled out, and the street was quiet again. But the flags remained, 1 in the flower bed, 2 near the utility meter, 1 more in the backyard, right where the stone patio began. Noah sat on the porch with a notebook, drawing a rough sketch of where each marker had been placed. They weren't random. They formed a path, one that sliced diagonally through his property. If the HOA had their way, the new fence would cut through his side wall, across the lawn, and into his back fence like he didn't exist. Noah looked out across the street at the small vinyl sign hanging from the HOA notice board. Preserving property values, 1 project at a time. He shook his head and pulled out his phone. "I think it's time we figured out whose map they're using." Noah Strickland hadn't planned to live in a neighborhood with an HOA. He certainly hadn't planned to have his living room mistaken for greenbelt space. 8 years ago, when he left his job as a city planner in Dallas, he wasn't looking for oversight. He wanted quiet, a house that felt like it had grown roots. He found it in a town called Coyote Bend, 2 hours from anything loud, fast, or concrete. A place where the sky still looked like a sky, and every road still had a name, not a number. The house was already old when he bought it. A 1967 ranch, all weathered brick and creaky door frames, but it had character, built-in shelves, an old root cellar, and a porch that faced west just right. The previous owners had passed away, and left it in decent shape, but it needed care. Noah spent the first year sanding, rewiring, and hand-sealing every window. It wasn't just a house, it was a project with a heartbeat. The HOA had only become active again in the last few years. A neighborhood of mostly retirees and longtime locals had slowly turned over. New builds went up, young families moved in. The original HOA had been defunct since 2003, but in 2020, it was revived under a new name, Coyote Bend Neighborhood Standards Committee. Noah had laughed at the term Standards Committee, but at the time, it sounded harmless, until it wasn't. That afternoon, Noah pulled out the original property documents from a file box in his hall closet. He had a copy of the title, his purchase agreement, and a plat map stamped from the county assessor's office. According to every page, his lot ended exactly 12 feet past the rear corner of his house, and his front boundary sat just inside the sidewalk. There was nothing shared about it. The phrase greenbelt didn't appear once. He printed the documents anyway. Later, he called his friend Joelle, who worked at the local title office. She promised to pull anything she could find, but if they're using an old map, she warned, it could get messy. A lot of these subdivisions had unofficial extensions back in the day, especially in the 80s. Developers didn't always file things right. That didn't make him feel better. He walked outside to get some air, but paused at the side yard. 3 more flags had appeared, not from the workers, from someone else. These ones were neon pink, not orange, stuck directly into his raised flower bed, which bordered his kitchen window. There was no note, just a tag on one that read boundary revision pending, Sector C2. Noah stared at it. Sector C2 wasn't even his street. It was across the main road, a different subdivision entirely, different block, different zoning. He pulled all 3 flags out and tossed them in the trash. That evening, as the sun set behind the trees, Noah sat on the porch with his dog Jasper curled at his feet and a cold bottle of iced tea sweating in his hand. He didn't feel angry, not yet. He felt insulted. This house wasn't a blueprint on some dusty archive shelf. It was a place where things happened, where his niece took her first steps, where he'd hosted Sunday dinners, where he'd painted the ceiling 3 times because the color never looked right. And now a group of board members he'd never met thought they could redraw lines and pretend a living room didn't exist. He opened his email and drafted a message to the HOA contact listed in the newsletter. To whom it may concern, I'm reaching out to request the full boundary plan being used for the current fencing project, specifically as it pertains to Lot 81, my property. I've identified several discrepancies between what's marked on the ground and my certified documents on file. I'm requesting an immediate hold on any planned installations until this can be verified. He clicked send, then he attached the plat map and sent a second email to the county zoning department. Subject: urgent boundary verification request. Potential construction error on private property. He didn't know what would happen next, but something was off, deeply off, and tomorrow morning, he'd start getting to the bottom of it. By Monday morning, the noise was back, not hammers, not saws, just the whir of electric augers boring holes into the ground, followed by the thunk of posts being dropped into place. Noah stepped onto his porch, still holding a coffee mug that read "Not my circus, definitely my monkeys." The HOA crew had returned. 2 men in matching polos were stringing twine between fresh metal stakes on the south edge of his property. The line cut diagonally across his yard, and if it kept going, it would pass directly under his living room wall. Noah walked toward them. "Didn't I ask you to stop?" One of the men, the same foreman from Saturday, barely looked up. "We were told to continue. Orders from the HOA president. Did you even read the email I sent?" "We just billed," the man said. Noah bit his tongue and walked to the edge of the property, just shy of the new trench they were digging. "And if I stand here all day?" The man didn't answer. Instead, he pulled a folded paper from his pocket and handed it over. Noah unfolded it. A parcel map, but not the one he had. This one was faded, poorly scanned, and stamped with a watermark that read "Revised, 1986 Proposal, Unverified." "This is what you're using?" Noah asked. "Don't know," the foreman said. "Just the version they handed us." Noah took a picture of the document and stormed back into his house. He emailed it to Joelle. 5 minutes later, she called. "Where the hell did you get that?" she asked. "That's one of the disputed plats from the Wilcox overlay. It's not official. It was never filed." Wilcox overlay. It was a proposed lot expansion in the late 80s, she explained. One of the developers wanted to merge 2 disconnected tracts and filed a proposal to shift lot lines to accommodate drainage. But the plan was scrapped after pushback. That version shouldn't even be circulating. "Well," Noah said, "someone's circulating it. Outside, the workers kept digging. By lunch, they'd installed 4 vertical posts, one so close to the house that it was brushing the siding. Noah took photos, then he emailed them to the zoning office, then to the county assessor, then to his city council rep, then he waited. That afternoon, a crisp knock sounded at the front door. It wasn't the HOA, it was Celia Hartman. She stood with perfect posture, clipboard in one hand, sunglasses on despite the overcast sky. She looked mid-50s, sharply dressed, the type of person who probably arranged her spice rack alphabetically and color-coded her legal pads. "Mr. Strickland," she said, with a nod. "You must be Celia, HOA president," she confirmed. "I'm here in response to your recent complaints about the fence installation." "They're not complaints," he said. "They're legal concerns, and your map is fake." She smiled thinly. "The fencing is aligned with community enhancement goals and approved easement adjustments per the Phase 2 Planning Committee. You're trying to fence through my house. That portion has been designated a shared visual corridor under the revised Greenbelt Plan," she said, as if reading from a teleprompter. "Our documents indicate an easement corridor overlapping the southeast structure of your property. Show me that documentation." "That's an internal file, so you can hand out fake maps but not show the originals." Celia didn't flinch. "You'll need to submit a formal review request, in writing, processed at the next board meeting, which will be held on the 3rd Thursday of the month. That's 18 days from now, correct? By then the fence will be through my fireplace." Celia gave a diplomatic shrug, then she handed him a notice of non-compliance. It was printed on HOA letterhead, complete with his name, his address, and a list of infractions, including obstruction of development, failure to maintain cooperative attitude, and deliberate confusion of jurisdiction. "Deliberate confusion," he muttered, reading. "You may appeal," Celia said, stepping back toward the sidewalk, "but I'd recommend reconsidering your position. It's just a fence, Mr. Strickland. Aesthetics over adversity." He didn't respond. He watched her leave, the fence posts now rising like crooked teeth behind her. Later that night, he took out a flashlight and walked to the back of his lot, near the old pecan tree. He hadn't noticed it before, but now he saw something. A rusted metal disc, half buried near the roots. He dug around it carefully, stamped into the center, barely visible, BLM, marker, Lot 81, 1966, the original boundary post, still there, still right. By morning Noah had the marker scrubbed clean. It took a wire brush, a spray bottle of vinegar, and an hour of careful scraping, but there was no mistaking the stamp. BLM marker, Lot 81, 1966, PB 14, PG 73A boundary marker, placed by the original developer, recognized by the Bureau of Land Management. It was 12 feet beyond the corner of his home, right where his current plat map said it should be, not 20 feet back like the HOA's phony overlay claimed, not through his living room, not even close. He took a dozen photos from every angle, uploaded them, and emailed them to Joelle at the title office. Her response came within minutes. "That marker is gold. If it's original, and undisturbed, it's the final word. BLM posts override any later revisions, unless resurveyed by court order." Noah exhaled. He had proof. Now he needed leverage. He called the zoning office again, but the phones rang endlessly. Then he tried the city planning department. No luck there either, but someone had left a sticky note on his porch. "You're not crazy, come talk. Leon, Lot 72. Lot 72 was 3 doors down. He hadn't spoken to the owner more than once or twice in passing. A quiet man. Wore big hats, always seemed to be gardening. That afternoon, Noah knocked. The door opened almost immediately. "You found the disc?" the man asked. "Excuse me." Leon Ramirez stepped aside. He wore suspenders over a checkered shirt, and had a pencil behind one ear. His house smelled like soil, and something slow cooked. "I saw you out there last night," Leon said, "by the pecan. Only reason I didn't say anything is because I've been waiting 20 years for someone to notice that damn thing again." "You know what it is?" "Better," Leon said. "I put it there." Noah blinked. "You're a surveyor. Retired now. Used to work contracts for BLM and the county. Did most of these lots myself back in the 60s and 70s. Noah stepped inside. Leon's living room was lined with bookshelves, binders, and rolled-up plats tucked into a standing file rack. The coffee table had a worn blueprint laid flat beneath glass. Coyote Bend Phase 1, original lot grid.
You want to know why your house is being sliced in half, Leon said, settling into an armchair. Because someone used the wrong revision set. Again. This has happened before? Twice, Leon said. There was a push in the 80s to expand the neighborhood. Developer hired some junior planner, who merged 2 old plats to create new greenbelt space, but they never filed it. Got denied by the county. Everyone forgot, except the guy who scanned it into the HOA archive. Leon handed Noah a binder labeled Unfiled Overlays. Coyote Bend. Page 2 had the map the fence crew had shown him. There it is, Leon said. Overlay from 1986. Drafted. Rejected. But it's still floating around, because no one updates these things right, and they're building from it. Yup, Leon said. Because nobody in that HOA knows how to read a real survey. Noah sat forward. So what do I do? Leon scratched his chin. Well, they ignored your emails, blew off your boundary docs, and stuck flags in your house. So maybe it's time you go public. Media, start smaller, Leon said. Neighborhood first, local meeting, make them squirm, and if they threaten legal action, I've got 6 certified plats, and 3 old aerials you can use. Noah smiled. You've been waiting for this. Oh, I'm not saying I'm rooting for a fight, Leon said, grinning. But I'm also not saying I didn't print these maps 2 weeks ago, when they started fencing behind the Martins' shed. That night, Noah posted to the neighborhood message board. No anger, just a photo of the metal disc, a clean copy of the certified lot map, and a question. Anyone else see orange flags cutting across their yards? Might want to double check your boundaries. By morning 6 responses had come in, all saying the same thing. Yes. By midweek, Noah had a list. 9 houses, all with orange survey flags, all sitting on property lines that matched the 1986 unfiled overlay, not the certified plat maps. Some had flags in gardens. One ran through a tool shed. Another, according to its owner, was poking out from under a koi pond. And 2, like Noah's cross directly beneath the footprint of the home. It wasn't an isolated mistake anymore. It was systemic. The HOA had apparently authorized the entire perimeter fencing project, using a map that had never been legal in the first place. Worse, they had done so without any visible checks, no resident consultations, no open review of boundaries, no collaboration with city zoning, and now they were digging holes and issuing compliance notices based on a fantasy document. Noah brought everything he had to Leon's kitchen table. Original plats, photos of boundary discs, HOA notices, a copy of the newsletter, with the vague announcement about Phase 2 fencing. Leon opened a folder labeled Aerial History, 1972, 1995. These are county overflights, he said. They do 'em every 10 years. Gives you a time-stamped footprint of the whole neighborhood. He pulled out a grayscale photo from 1981. That's your house right there. No fence, no greenbelt. Just the lot lines. Then he showed the 1992 shot.
Same again. Even after the overlay proposal. See? No realignment. County didn't change the grid. Noah took a breath. So why does the HOA think they have the right map? Leon smirked. Because they don't know what they're doing. And because Celia Hartman's the kind of person who thinks a clipboard equals authority. That night Noah emailed every neighbor on the list. He attached clean scans of the official plats and invited them to a Saturday morning back porch meeting at his place. 7 families showed up. Some arrived curious. Others came angry. Most had no idea the map being used wasn't legally filed. A woman named Karen Martin brought a manila envelope full of letters she'd received over the last 2 years. They've been warning me about common ground encroachments since last fall, she said. First they said it was my shed, then my compost bins, then my clothesline. Noah held up a printout of her lot from the certified county record. None of those are outside your boundary, he said. Their line is wrong. A murmur spread. Another neighbor, Jacob Ruiz, tapped his phone screen and read aloud from an email. Dear resident, please remove the unauthorized structure intruding on easement C2 before March 14th to avoid penalties. Structure meant his garden arch. His wife had built it last year. Easement C2, Noah said, is part of the Wilcox overlay. It was never filed. Then how the hell do they think they can find me? They're hoping you won't know better. That phrase settled over the group like fog. Before the meeting ended, every person had copies of both maps, legal and fake, and a list of the known mismarked properties. Leon handed out printed flyers for the next HOA board meeting. At the bottom it read, "Ask the board which map they're using, then ask why." That evening, Noah got an email from Victor Yates, one of the HOA board members. Subject line: "We need to talk." Off the record, the message was short. "Noah, I saw your post, and the map. I'm not convinced Celia knows it's unfiled. She's referencing old planning notes I haven't seen. Can we talk privately?" The next morning, they met on the walking trail behind the Martins' yard. Victor looked tired, his shirt was wrinkled, and he rubbed his temples like a man with a persistent headache. "Celia told us this was a beautification project," he said. "Said the county signed off. She gave us a map packet last month. I didn't read the source stamp." Noah handed him a copy of the BLM marker photo, and a plat from 1966. "This is what's real," he said. "You're staking property through living rooms based on fiction." Victor nodded slowly. "Then it's worse than I thought." Victor Yates wasn't exactly a rebel. He drove a beige sedan, wore loafers with orthopedic soles, and served as HOA treasurer mostly because no one else volunteered. But after seeing the real map, the BLM certified plat with Lot 81 stamped in steel, something shifted in his demeanor. "I knew Celia was forceful," he said to Noah, "but I didn't realize she was using the wrong damn grid." Victor met Noah again 2 nights later, this time in Noah's kitchen over lukewarm coffee. Outside, the metal posts from the unfinished fence still stood like steel thorns, slicing through flower beds and side yards. "I've gone through the HOA archives," Victor said, pulling out a battered folder. "There's no record of the Wilcox overlay being adopted. The map Celia handed us has no vote attached, no motion, just a note that reads, 'Use this for Phase 2. He slid the folder across the table. "And here," he added, tapping a sheet clipped to the back, "is the kicker. The map's file name? Wilcox_draft_V. 3_recovered_scan.pdf. Recovered scan," Noah repeated. "Like from a hard drive?" Victor nodded. "It was emailed to Celia from someone outside the board. I traced the email. It came from a man named Kent Morley. Ever heard that name?" Noah shook his head. "Former developer," Victor explained. "He was part of the 1986 Wilcox project, the same one the county rejected." "So she's using a rejected plan from a former developer to redraw the neighborhood?" "That's what it looks like," Victor said. "And she's using it to justify pushing a fence line across 8 private homes." Noah leaned back in his chair. "This isn't just a mistake," he said. "It's a manufactured reality. She's building a neighborhood that doesn't legally exist." Victor was silent a moment. "Would you speak at the next board meeting?" he asked. "I will," Noah replied. "But she won't go down quietly." He was right. The next morning, Noah received a letter. Not an email, not a flyer. A formal notice, hand-delivered and taped to his mailbox. Notice of community disruption. Category 3 subject. Unauthorized gathering, neighborhood defamation. Unauthorized posting of materials. The letter accused Noah of deliberate community destabilization, and cited HOA bylaws that didn't exist. Sections labeled 6, 9.2a and 7.4-c, none of which appeared in the actual charter. At the bottom, in bold, "Failure to comply will result in lien review." Noah scanned it and forwarded it to Victor, Joel at the title office, and Leon, just in case. 2 hours later, Celia posted a message to the neighborhood forum. "It has come to the board's attention that misinformation regarding Phase 2 improvements has been distributed without HOA approval. Residents are reminded that official documents are available only through the HOA portal, and alternate versions may result in penalties." Under the post, one comment stood out. "You mean the version that says my kitchen is now part of a walking trail?" Jacob Ruiz. Others followed. "Why is there a post in my fire pit? Who approved trenching across my driveway? Is it true the fence is based on a fake map?" By sundown, the post had over 70 comments. The next day, Leon printed out a satellite overlay of the neighborhood, and marked every known discrepancy in red. It looked like a crime scene. Fencing lines that bisected roofs, survey flags overlapping sidewalks, orange pins crossing well-documented lot lines. He posted it to the community board with a heading in bold: "We don't need a fence, we need the truth." The same night someone egged Noah's garage door. He cleaned it up quietly, said nothing online, and went about his day. But at dusk, he noticed something different. A small card had been taped to his door. It was handwritten.
Don't back down. We've been waiting for someone to speak up. See you at the meeting. Lot 65. By Monday, Noah received a certified envelope with a thick HOA seal. Inside were 6 pages of legal-sounding language, typed in bold font and clipped together with a yellow tag labeled, "Immediate action required. Probationary violation notice." The cover letter, signed by Celia Hartman herself, stated that Noah was in formal violation of neighborhood unity bylaws, and accused him of disrupting planned infrastructure improvements, hosting unsanctioned gatherings, distributing unapproved maps, engaging in acts of reputational harm to the HOA. Each offense came with a fine $500 here, $250 there. One was labeled emotional disruption, which Noah had to read twice just to believe. The total amount? $3,850. At the bottom of the final page, failure to pay fines or cease harmful behavior may result in HOA board review of property ownership status. Eviction procedures will be considered if non-compliance persists. Eviction. For not agreeing with offense, Noah placed the papers on the kitchen table, leaned back in his chair, and let the silence settle. He'd expected pressure. He hadn't expected this kind of overreach. The phrase property ownership status wasn't even in the HOA charter. It was something Celia had invented. There were no procedures for evicting a homeowner. But facts weren't what she was operating on. She was betting on intimidation. He forwarded the letter to Victor and Joelle. Then he emailed it to the local paper's tip line, just in case. An hour later, Victor called. "She's gone rogue," he said. "We never voted on this letter. It wasn't reviewed, and the fines don't exist in our system. She's using her own template. Can she legally do that?" Victor paused. "No, but most people won't fight it. They'll just pay." "I'm not most people," Noah said. That night, another flag appeared. This time it was taped to his front door. A neon pink marker with a note, "Boundary marker reaffirmation. Preliminary fence test install. Authorized by chair." It was planted in his welcome mat. Noah didn't even touch it. He just took a photo and posted it to the neighborhood board with a caption, "Coming soon. The HOA tries to install a privacy fence across my recliner." The post went viral within the neighborhood. At least. By midnight, it had over 100 reactions, and 24 comments. People began sharing their own flag placements. Someone even posted a photo of a survey marker, stuck through the middle of a barbecue grill. One post read, "I never joined this HOA. I inherited my place from my dad. Are we even members?" That was the question no one had asked yet. The original HOA charter had expired in 2003. The revival Celia led in 2020 was self-organized, and it was unclear if all residents had opted in. Some may have been included without ever signing documents. The legality of that was murky. Victor confirmed the board had never completed the renewal certification with the county. Technically, he told Noah, if you never signed, they might not have jurisdiction over your property at all. That revelation hit like thunder. Later that week, a neighbor 2 streets over, Tina Clark, shared her HOA packet from 2021. It included a map, one that looked suspiciously like the Wilcox overlay, but in tiny print at the bottom, it read, "For visual reference only. Boundary definitions subject to official county records." It was the caveat Celia hoped no one would read. Joelle pulled up the county clerk records. She confirmed that Noah's title had never been amended. The overlay never appeared in the public record. No easement, no boundary revision, nothing. Meanwhile, the fence crew kept working, just not at Noah's place. They shifted to Lot 88, then 90, planting posts in lines that had no basis in reality. Celia, desperate to finish the project, was racing the fallout. Noah, however, wasn't racing anymore. He was preparing. The board meeting was in 4 days, and he had binders, witnesses, historical plats, a retired surveyor, and now, apparently, a questionable HOA existence, to bring up in front of the entire neighborhood.
The HOA board meeting was scheduled for 6 p.m. Thursday at the Coyote Bend Community Hall, a squat brick building with bad lighting and foldable chairs that made everything feel like detention. But that night, every seat was taken. The usual crowd of a dozen had turned into nearly 80 residents. Some stood in the back, others leaned against the walls. Someone brought cookies. Another set up a folding table labeled Flag Watch. Noah arrived with a plastic tub full of evidence. Victor trailed behind him, clipboard in hand, Leon walked in wearing his surveyor vest and a dusty rolled-up plat map under one arm. Even Joelle showed up, having printed out every relevant title document. And at the front, as always, sat Celia Hartman. Her blazer was red. Her pen was gold. She called the meeting to order with a tap of her clipboard. "Before we begin tonight's agenda," she said, voice calm, "we have a matter of community concern brought forth by one of our residents, Noah Strickland. Please keep remarks under 3 minutes." Noah walked to the front. He didn't speak immediately. Instead, he held up the letter Celia had mailed him. "This," he said, "is a fine for $3,850 for hosting a conversation in my own backyard." A murmur rose. Noah dropped the next paper. "This is a map the HOA used to plan fencing through my living room. It's marked Wilcox Overlay, Draft V3, Recovered Scan. It was never approved, never filed." He held up a photo of the metal boundary marker under his pecan tree. "This disc was placed by a certified BLM contractor in 1966. It's legally recognized. I had it confirmed by the county and a retired surveyor who happens to be sitting right over there." All eyes turned to Leon, who gave a polite wave. Noah handed out a copy of the real plat map to the board, and a dozen copies to the audience. Joelle stood and confirmed that none of the properties had amended titles. "The HOA," she said clearly, "had no authority to move boundaries based on unfiled documents." Victor stepped forward next. "I'm the HOA treasurer," he said. "I reviewed the records myself. The Wilcox map was never approved. It was sent directly to Celia from an ex-developer, Kent Morley. She implemented it without a board vote." Celia stood. "That's not accurate," she said. "The planning committee reviewed the overlay as part of a long-term vision strategy. You told us the county approved it," Victor interrupted. Celia hesitated. "Well, they didn't object." Noah opened a binder and displayed an email from the county clerk. "No record of Wilcox Overlay found in approved filings. Any use of such for construction guidance is not sanctioned." Celia's voice wavered for the first time. "We were acting in good faith. These enhancements are for the benefit of all residents. The fencing promotes safety, aesthetic unity." A hand shot up from the crowd. "Is it true you tried to fine him for sitting on his porch?" Another. "Why does my garden now count as a code violation?" Another. "Why is a map from the 80s being used in 2023? Then someone yelled, "Are we even part of this HOA? I never signed anything." The room shifted. Noah turned to face the crowd. "The original HOA expired in 2003, he said. "The new one formed in 2020 was never certified with full participation. If you didn't opt in, and there's no amendment in your deed, this board might not have power over you at all." Celia's face flushed deep pink. She tapped her clipboard loudly. "This meeting is out of order." "No," someone shouted back. "This meeting is finally in order." Applause broke out. Victor cleared his throat and addressed the board. "I motion that we suspend all Phase 2 fencing activity pending legal review, and that we freeze all HOA enforcement actions tied to the Wilcox overlay." "I second," said another board member. Quiet, but firm. Celia stared straight ahead. "Vote," she said. The board raised their hands. 5-2. Motion passed. The room exploded, not in cheers, but in relief. Noah sat down, hands shaking slightly. Leon patted his shoulder. "You just moved the real line," he said. By Monday the digging stopped. The fence crew packed up their augers, their stakes, their bobbing orange flags. The steel posts, half installed along yards that never asked for them, were pulled out of the ground with soft thuds that echoed like an apology. Celia didn't show up that day, or the next. Victor served as acting chair now. His first order of business was simple: freeze everything, call a real surveyor, fix what's broken. Noah watched from his porch as the men disassembled the last panel they'd started installing along his side wall. They rolled it away like a prop from a bad play, leaving behind only a strip of disturbed soil and a dent in the flower bed. Joelle stopped by with good news. "The county clerk's office just accepted the original boundary submission," she said, handing Noah a stamped copy. "Your lot has been formally re-verified with GPS points matching the BLM marker. Legally, it's airtight now." He exhaled. "I didn't realize how tense I'd been until this paper showed up." "They always do this," Joelle said. "Push, threaten, confuse, count on people backing down. But you didn't." That afternoon, An audit request was filed with the state HOA Oversight Board. It came from 10 households, backed by title records, survey footage, and a binder of Celia's letters, each one signed, each one threatening some version of a non-existent rule. Victor helped draft the request. Leon submitted an affidavit verifying the historic markers. And Tina Clark, the woman with the grill flag, wrote a blistering testimony that began with, "I never thought a neighborhood group could make me afraid to garden." The news caught on quickly. 2 local blogs picked up the story. One ran a headline, "Homeowner Fights HOA, Wins Entire Living Room Back." Noah laughed when he saw it. Celia, on the other hand, did not. The following week, the HOA board received a formal resignation letter from her, folded inside a manila envelope, left anonymously at the community hall. No goodbye, no admission, just one typed line: "The community should be free to make its own mistakes." Nobody cried. That Thursday, the new board met and voted to terminate all pending fines related to the fence project. They restructured the group to require community-wide votes for future construction, and created a digital archive of actual, verified maps. Victor stood at the front, and smiled nervously. "We're not trying to get rid of rules," he said. "We're just trying to make sure they're real ones." Applause was hesitant at first, then louder. Outside, the posts Celia had ordered still sat in a pile near the equipment shed. No one seemed eager to take them. So Leon offered a solution. He and a few volunteers cut them into sections and turned them into bike racks for the nearby trailhead. "I figured we might as well give them a purpose," he said. Noah offered up his flower bed. One of the old metal posts, bent from when it had leaned into his siding, was cleaned, painted bright yellow, and turned into a plant hanger for trailing petunias. He left the tag on it. Sector C2, revised fence line. His new neighbors laughed every time they walked by. But the victory wasn't just his. The board was reshaped. The oversight system was rebuilt. Several families who had never once spoken at meetings started attending. A working group formed to draft real bylaws, focused on inclusion and transparency. Even Tina Clark volunteered to lead a common-sense compliance review. "I'm only signing up," she said, "if no one can get fined for humming too loudly." Noah signed up too. He wasn't interested in control. He was interested in protection. Protection from this ever happening again. The final step came 2 weeks later. Joelle handed him a thin envelope from the city registrar. Inside was a formal acknowledgement that Lot 81's legal description had been corrected and refiled under the original 1966 survey. The marker under the pecan tree was now officially logged in the digital property database. Noah laminated it and hung it on the inside of his front door. Not out of paranoia, out of peace. On a warm Sunday morning, Noah Strickland sipped coffee under the old pecan tree and watched the sun trace slow shadows across his porch. The arch of petunias swung gently in the breeze, hanging from what used to be a misplaced fence post. He'd kept it not out of spite, but as a reminder. Bright yellow, still tagged, Sector C2, still ridiculous. That spot, once marked for invasion, was now his quietest corner. A year had passed since the flags first appeared, since the holes were drilled, since his hallway briefly became a construction site. The house looked the same, but it felt different. Not because of the siding, or the garden, or the replanted flower bed, but because he now knew what it meant to defend a boundary, without losing yourself inside it. That spring, Victor had stepped down from the board. Not because of failure, but because the new leadership was functioning, and he wanted to enjoy retirement with fewer spreadsheets. Leon finally tossed the last of his survey maps into a storage bin labeled settled stuff. He came by every so often with banana bread and complaints about squirrels. Even Joelle, who'd once said she hated HOA politics more than root canals, had started helping draft the new charter. She wrote the section about lot verification herself, right down to the phrase, "Any map used for construction must be certified by the county and match recorded parcel data." No exceptions. Residents began to relax. The tension that once crept through sidewalks and flower beds gave way to porch chats and yard sales. Tina Clark's grill became a community potluck staple. Sarah Nguyen started a flag spotting scavenger hunt for the kids, only now the flags were paper ones taped to lemonade cups. Celia Hartman never returned. Rumor had it she moved to a lakeside town with no HOA.
Nobody followed up, and nobody missed her. At the edge of the walking trail, where the fence posts had once formed a jagged scar across the neighborhood, the community installed something else. A little wooden kiosk with a glass panel. Inside was a laminated map of Coyote Bend, the real one. Certified, dated and signed by the board. Above it a brass plaque. Here once stood a line that didn't belong. It reminded us where the true boundaries are, and who gets to draw them. The dedication brought tears to a few eyes. Even Noah's. He didn't speak that day. He didn't need to. The board chair read a short note he'd submitted. If a fence can be built in error, then community can be built on purpose. And this time, we got it right. On the first anniversary of the incident, Noah hosted a neighborhood barbecue, not out of obligation, but out of gratitude. He set up tables in the yard. Joelle brought a cake that said "Map it right." Leon brought a binder labeled "No More Surprises." Tina brought pie. Even folks from the next street over came by, laughing about how they'd once been sure HOA letters could ruin a person's life. Noah stood at the edge of the yard as dusk fell, watching kids chase lightning bugs across ground that had once been falsely flagged as shared space. It wasn't shared, it was his. And yet, here they all were, sharing it anyway. No conflict, no code enforcement, no clip threats or fluorescent pink markers, just music from a Bluetooth speaker, just paper plates piled high, just stories, laughter, familiar voices. And in that moment, he understood what Celia had never figured out. Community isn't controlled, it's invited. Noah walked back to the porch. Jasper trotted behind him, tail wagging. He settled into the chair beneath the pecan tree, the same one where he'd first spotted the marker half buried in soil and time. He looked around, at the people, at the sky, at the bright yellow post now covered in flowers, and he smiled. The line hadn't just been corrected, it had been reclaimed.